Hello and welcome to Low Volume. My name's Joshua Ramirez, aka PlayfulPhoenix, and this is episode 11. I'm joined today by not all 4 J's, but at least we have 3 of them. To my virtual left, we have James Schell, aka Aibohphobia. How have you been doing, James?
Been doing good. Been busy at work, unfortunately, but yeah, it's been doing good.
I know that feeling. I'd also like to point out before I move on to our next J, I've noticed listening to our podcast that every single time I ask you how you've been doing at the top of the show, you always start by going, Do you notice that?
Yeah.
John, have you noticed this?
I've not noticed.
I edited the last one, and yes, the amount of ums and ahs, and yeah, it's terrible. I don't notice it when I'm talking though, which is what's annoying. But then when I edit it, it's super frustrating.
But was it specific to this introduction segment? Like every time I ask you how you're doing, it's not just like ums and ahs. It's like, like I'll pull that out and repeat it 20 times.
Put it in the
podcast recording. Just some people have certain verbal tics or whatever. And it's very funny. I'm sure I do something similar and haven't noticed it, but I just wanted to make sure that you noticed. Yeah. Is it that annoying sound that comes out whenever I open my mouth? You know, the talking.
No, it's like on when you like sometimes you'll trail sentences and just go like, I can't even think of exactly how to say it, but yeah, you'll just like. It just kind of trail off into like just slowly nothing. And it makes it really annoying. Yes,
like that. Yeah. I do that. I'm sorry.
Hard to edit, but
yeah. Really? All right. Well, you're to my virtual left or right or whatever, and to the virtual other side, for which there is no James, there is John Morrison, aka Confusis, not the philosopher. How you doing, John?
Fantastic, actually. Things are looking up.
That is great.
I'm enjoying life. I've got a new project on the go. It's all good.
All good things. All good things. All right. Well, we have a build contest to do in the second half of the show, so I'm just going to go ahead and jump right into the news. And the first thing we have on our docket, it's a double hitter. This look at I literally just did it. Oh man, this is gonna be fun. I'm gonna notice every time I do it now. Now I'm gonna try to not do it, and I'm going to fail, and I'm just going to point out every time I do it, and further ruin the recording.
I'm just thankful that nobody pointed out anything I do, because that way I'm not aware of it.
Oh well,
I didn't really notice any odd audio tics or anything.
Apart from the nasal kiwiness.
Well, it's mostly that the like I said, the sound level was way too low, so it was. I don't know. I couldn't figure out how to. I think I was auditing in Audacity, and I couldn't figure out how to make the waveform bigger on individual tracks. For some reason, even though I bumped the gain up, it doesn't actually like visually adjust it. So it made it really hard to edit because it's like just a really thin line, so I couldn't see where you were actually talking. So
I wasn't really
interesting.
I was rather quiet last time.
Yeah, that was true. Yeah.
That's really hard to get a word edited edgewise with Josh talking.
I see how it is. All right, well, back to the news. As I said, double hitter from, of all places, Logic Supply. So this is an article that, John, you wrote a little while ago. I think this was maybe like 1.5, 2 weeks ago. But Logic Supply actually recently launched the CL100, which is a Bramwell-Based NUC. But what's particularly interesting about it is that, A, it's very, very compact. In fact, in the official sort of documentation and pictures that they had on release, they compare it next to the size of a standard ballpoint pen. And it's, it's a square profile. It's actually less wide or deep, however you would choose to measure it than the ballpoint pen. But equally impressive is the fact that the NUC itself is fanless. And it's got 2 HDMI, 2 USB, DisplayPort. We've got power and Ethernet. and then just a little orange power button on the top. Looks decent enough. Could you tell us a little more about it, or?
I could. It's got the quad-core Intel Celeron N3150, Intel HD graphics, of course. Apparently it can cope with 4K or triple displays, probably not at the same time. What else have we got here? Can take up to 16 gig of RAM, 512 gig of SATA SSD, has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and it's absolutely tiny and kind of boring.
Yeah, and I just noticed it's actually got a USB Type-C port up at the front as well, so it's got nice and modern I/O.
You can kind of tell it's not designed 100% for the consumer market because it's just this little grey box with a little bit of orange on it.
Yeah, I mean, they have like the sort of engraved fins, it's fanless, so they need to kind of boost that surface area to help it along its way with that. But no, I mean, for an industrial, it isn't clearly designed towards consumers, but given that it is an industrial PC box, it looks very nice for what it is.
I'm surprised that they made the bottom panel like orange, because I mean it looks cool in the picture, but you would never see it in operation. So it seems kind of odd that they bothered.
I'm wondering if the shell's aluminium, but the base is steel, and they just decided I have to powder coat it some color. We'll go with orange. It's our corporate identity.
It's like that Steve Jobs quote about painting the other side of the fence. It's like, people won't see it, but you'll know it's there.
Exactly.
So you got to do the complete solution. But yes, I mean, in terms
also
of
wonder if
so in terms of specifications, nothing incredibly spectacularly awesome. But I mean, it's a passive computer. Those are generally gonna not be great performers, but no noise can't beat literally no noise. And in terms of pricing, I believe it starts relatively inexpensively. It's only like $350 or so. And
I don't know what spec that 347 is. I'm assuming it's without memory and storage.
Oh, really? So that would be as a bare bones?
1 second. 340. No, I'm wrong. $347 includes 2 gigs of DDR3 and a 32 gig SSD.
Okay. All right, that's not bad.
So just your base kind of thin client level of specification.
Yeah, no, I mean, that definitely gets the job done.
But upgrades, you've got like add $10 to make it 4 gig of memory, $41 for 8 gig. I don't know how that compares.
I like how their memory upgrades are actually reasonably priced.
Yeah.
Because like Apple would basically just, I mean, you could almost buy this thing for how much Apple would charge you to upgrade RAM on some of their units.
I won't even speak to the most expensive RAM upgrade I've ever seen for an Apple product. It was pretty terrifying. It was the original MacBook Air. The most expensive upgrade I've ever seen was for the original MacBook Air. It was to upgrade to an SSD, because I actually used an iPod hard drive in that to get it to be thin, and SSDs were still like very, very, very new. And to quote unquote upgrade from a 160 gig hard drive to 128 gig SSD, I'm not kidding, was $1,200.
Jesus.
$1,200.
How far we've come.
I know.
It's so much cheaper.
I mean, even I was just looking through the little specification thingy. Even upgrading like the M.2, M-SATA drives, the prices that they're giving for the upgrade is actually market price for the drives. They're obviously not taking off the cost for the original SSD, but on Newegg at the moment, a 512 gig M.2 drive is about $200, and that's what they're charging here.
Well, there you go. Good for them. So this is the first bit of news from Logic Supply that we heard about. And then they actually got in touch with us more recently, sort of in relation to the CL100 fanless made PC. So they are trying to get a hashtag started called hashtag GoFanless. And they actually have a contest going on where they're asking people to submit photos of their disgusting, horrible, dirty computers that use fans and are coated in dust and are just terrible. And then they'll be picking their, I guess, favorite or maybe least favorite picture of horrible. I guess it depends on how you'd want to approach that. You'll have to ask them how they're doing this. But in any case, they'll be looking through all the pictures that people submitted of their disgusting computers and horror stories thereof. And they will pick someone, and that person who has the most disgusting, I guess, will be declared the winner and will get a prize package from Logic Supply themselves. So on the website, we have a link to all of the information for this contest. We thank Logic Supply for sharing it with us. We think it's kind of a cool contest and a way to help out people who are not living it up and have terrible cooling or other things going on with their existing rig. I unfortunately don't have a desktop, so I can't actually submit for this. But I imagine the inside of my laptop is
on here.
Yeah, I imagine the inside of my laptop is coated in dust.
Oh, it is. Like every one of those MacBooks I've ever worked on are all, because the problem is they don't have, I mean, it's kind of cool, like none of the MacBooks have like intake vents on the bottom of the laptop. So you don't have to worry about like putting it on your lap and blocking a vent like you do on most laptops. So that's cool. But they draw air through the keyboard. Like just, yes, all those like gaps and stuff around the keys on the keyboard, that's actually the intake, or at least part of it.
That's interesting. I've learned something
So the
today.
problem is like, of course, like it's not like a nice clean path to the heatsink. So like all the MacBooks have tons and tons of dust in them because it all kind of like falls out of the air as it goes through all the kind of twists and turns to get to the fan. So yeah.
So I have the Retina MacBook Pro that does have vents. It has vents to flanking the palm rests. They're very small. It's
is yours a 17-inch?
No. So when they started making the Retina MacBook Pro, because it was so thin, I guess, if you look like at it from the side, underneath the palm rests on the sides, there's very thin vents that are just underneath the lip of the side of the unibody chassis. So I think that's just because they had to make everything so thin, like the keyboard is shallower and whatnot.
Okay,
so it's
yeah,
probably
like
untenable.
You mean like on the front edge?
No, not on the front edge, the sides. So
okay, yeah, I see on some of the pictures now.
Yeah, if you look at a picture online. So it's subtle. I think it's a better.
It's kind of the same thing though. Is like they're at the very kind of extremes of it though, so the air has to kind of flow across the whole insides to get to the fans. So
yes.
Yeah, so what I find is like the dust just settles out, and then like the whole insides are just full of dust.
Yummy.
Yeah.
I should get a pentalobe screwdriver, pop the bottom off, and be like,
well, yeah, that's a whole nother thing. It drives me nuts that they do that. Yeah, and like they keep switching the screws too, like the types, because you have like I think the 5-star pentalobe, and then like the security Torx. So luckily they don't do as much with security Torx. But yeah, it's just super annoying. Oh, because I had to work on our Mac Mini here at work the other day. It swapped drives, and it takes I think it's like a T4 security, which is like really, really small. So like nobody makes T4 security bits. Like I don't think iFixit even has one. So I ended up, because it's the one we use here at the shop, so I didn't care about resale value. So I ended up just taking like a punch and just punching out the little pin in the middle for the security part, so I could use a normal Torx bit.
Well, I guess that's one way to do it. Oh, man. All right. Well, anyways, back to the news. If you hop on our website, you can see more information about this contest that they're running. Basically, on a weekly basis, Logic Supply will pick an image, and you'll get a prize package. It's got like a mouse, a coffee mug, some stickers, stuff like that. And then I believe So they're running this contest for some predetermined period of time, and then at the end of that,
Closes on August 10th.
August 10th. So you have until August 10th.
Yeah.
And then, they'll be sharing pictures that people submit, and then at the end of that, whichever picture has the most likes or overall votes, it says here in the press release, they'll actually not only have presumably gotten a prize package, they will have also be declared the winner and will be given a CL100, the fanless mini PC we were just talking about 10 minutes ago, which is a pretty awesome prize. I think, and the cool thing about I should have mentioned earlier, but like the cool thing about something like this computer, this CL100, fanless, durable, whatever, is that like everyone has like a thing where it's like, yeah, I guess it'd be cool if I could like hook up a computer and have it do X and Y, but like that's, I'd have to buy a computer and whatever, it is, whatever. But like, here you go. Now you have like a tiny little computer you can throw practically anywhere. And so like, if you have that hobby or pet project or idea or anything really that you haven't done just because it required you buy a computer and go through all this effort, well, hey, look, now you have a chance to take a picture of a crummy computer, perhaps win a replacement, perhaps win a computer that you can do other fun, cool things with. So I encourage anyone with disgusting computers, such as myself, apparently, to go ahead, snap a photo of it, throw it online, let people mock you, but hey, maybe you'll win some cool stuff. All right, next up in the news, I'm taking a look here at our document. This one I'm actually very excited to talk about because I've been waiting for this to happen for a while. So anyone who knows me or has listened to the show or has followed my rants and musings on the forum has noted that I've been complaining about the fact that the largest M.2 SSD you could get reliably was only 512 gigs in size, half a terabyte. And half a terabyte for many people, myself included, is just not quite enough. It's close, but it just wouldn't be quite enough, especially since you can now get like 2 terabyte, SATA SSDs, or even 1.2 terabyte or larger SSDs that are PCI. So I was incredibly happy when James posted this story indicating that the Samsung SM961 is close to shipping, which is important for 2 reasons. Well, I'd say 3 reasons, rather. One, it's not the 950 Pro, so we're adding another line by Samsung of SSDs that can be purchased, and I believe it'll be available, or at least roughly available for general purchase. B, the performance is good, especially for the price point. The 512 version of this model is only going to be around $260, which is like $50 or $60 less than the equivalent storage-sized 950 Pro. But most important, you'll be able to get this with up to a terabyte of storage. So crossing the terabyte barrier, we're finally able to do it with M.2. Obviously, it took a while since M.2's just freaking tiny. But that could make the difference for a lot of people between whether or not they need to have a second drive or whether or not they can use it to store pretty much everything. It certainly makes the difference in my case. So I don't know what the pricing is going to look like for the 1 terabyte model. James, I don't know if you have that handy or if you're familiar. I'm just happy that this is becoming a thing, to be honest.
Yeah, so it's $703 Australian dollars on Ram City. So I'm not sure what that conversion is off the top of my head, but yeah, the pricing is really good because the 512 one you mentioned, yeah, it's $260 including shipping to the United States from Australia.
Oh, that's doubly
yeah,
awesome.
so that's shipped, and that's including it's shipped using DHL, and so like they do all the customs and stuff like in house. So like all the custom fees are included in the shipping. So you don't, if you're in the United States and you order one of these, you don't have to worry about any like additional custom fees or anything.
So I hopped online, did the conversion. It looks that, so you said 703 Australian dollars, current exchange volume, that's $526 American.
Yeah, and I think it's $30 shipping. So
like 550.
Yeah, something like that.
So like price per gig is basically the same as the half terabyte. That's not terrible
50
for
cents a gigabyte.
Yeah, that's not terrible for M.2 PCIe.
Plus, it's the fastest one around.
Yes, that yeah. I mean, we were talking like what 3,200 megs per second.
Actually, so I mean, of course, that's just kind of like best case, completely sequential type of stuff. But I think the one we were here at work, we were testing. It's only the 512 gig one too. In Crystal Disk Mark, I think it was pulling almost 3,400 read.
Oh my
So
goodness!
it actually I mean, of course, that's kind of like just pure sequential best case, but it is actually doing almost 200 meg more than it's rated for.
Wow. Lust, just sheer lust for this drive.
Yeah.
Oh man, but needless.
You need to build a desktop to put it in.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's right. I'll just buy the drive. I'll admire it for its potential speed. I'm actually using it. It's just laying on my desk there, but I appreciate it. As well, I mean, people know. Again, people who follow me on the forum are aware. Like, to me, storage is like one of the greatest unsolved problems of modern computing, and a lot of the time when you look at where most people tend to be hitting a performance ceiling or otherwise tend to be hitting bottlenecks, right? Especially for more traditional users who aren't slamming their processor all the time, like encoding video or whatever. Almost always, even if they have like an SSD, almost always what the ceiling is or the bottleneck is the storage. And we have these incredibly fast pieces of silicon doing graphics and CPU bound tasks and whatnot. But then we can't consistently have those incredibly powerful components fed with data because the data moves too damn slow. So even something like this drive here doesn't come close to fully resolving that problem. There's still delay, and if you're opening anything substantial, it still takes time, and especially if you're talking about non-sequential reads like random small tiny fragments of reads that feed an application or whatever. Those are a hell of a lot slower than the 3,200 plus meg rating, and you feel that in terms of the performance of applications and whatnot. But I mean, even from either a traditional hard disk drive or a cheaper SSD or even any SATA SSD really to this, it's a noticeable improvement in performance, especially if you tend to be working with a lot of files or tend to be working on like media-rich stuff that's just really, really dense, like video or even audio in certain contexts. So I'm just happy that this is a thing that's becoming more widely available and that you can finally get a terabyte of storage, because that really does make the difference between being able to sort of implement it in a build versus not, just because some people, they're going to have lots of files and it's just not going to fit on half a terabyte, but a terabyte, they might be able to squeeze it. So
Yeah, because I'm starting to feel the pressure, because I have a 400 gig Intel 750 in my workstation, but editing these podcasts is becoming problematic because they're like there's like 3 to 4 tracks, they're over an hour long each, and then they're like, I mean, I think John or Jay does an MP3, which isn't bad, but like I record mine in just whatever the default is. I think it's WAV, so like my track's like a gigabyte or something stupid.
Jeez.
And then we're at
well, so whose fault is that?
Yeah, I should encode it, but yeah, I'm starting, even just like that's not even video, it's just audio, and it's already starting to consume a lot of space on my drive. So yeah, for definitely like the professionals who do any kind of like serious editing, then yeah, the terabyte. And what's really annoying though is that Samsung has been promising a terabyte 950 Pro for like literally, I think since the beginning, or I think late last year.
I was going to say since the beginning of time.
Yeah, I think it's almost been a year since they started talking about a terabyte 950 Pro.
Still not a
and
thing.
It's still not out, and now you can buy a terabyte of this one, the SM961.
That's better and cheaper.
So, yes, it's super annoying. I mean, of course, and I guess to be clear to anybody listening, these are not consumer drives. They're part of Samsung's OEM line. So if you buy it from Ram City will warranty it for 3 years. So just keep in mind, if you want to buy one of these, just pay real close attention to what kind of warranty the reseller's offering, because Samsung since you're not an OEM customer, Samsung is basically just gonna like tell you to go away. Like they're not gonna help you if the drive fails. So it's gonna be really important that the reseller you buy it from is gonna warranty it themselves. And also, like, because it's not a consumer drive, it's not going to work with Samsung Magician. So just kind of something to keep in mind, that there are some kind of caveats since this is an OEM drive. But even so, it's like, I mean, because presumably there's going to be a 960 Pro, because this is basically what happened with the SM951. Is the 950 Pro is kind of the consumer version of it. So I'm curious if they're just going to completely abandon the 1 terabyte 950 Pro and just go straight to the 960. Yeah.
At this point, you'd think so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they've kind of procrastinated long enough that it doesn't really make sense anymore.
They've solved their own problem. Oh, man. All right. Well, and let's go ahead and wrap up the news. So the last thing we have on our docket, also pretty excited for. I don't know which of you guys reported this on the website, so I'll...
That was me.
Okay, great. So perhaps you can speak towards it. I'll let you explain.
So yeah, basically, I don't think there was any kind of like press release or anything, but it's just like a listing on Gigabyte's website just showed up for a it's the Gigabyte GTX 1070 Mini-ITX OC. So as the name implies, this is a kind of a short, I guess what people kind of call ITX video card version of the GTX 1070. So yeah, it's basically what it sounds like. It's short, has a single 8-pin connector for power, a single 92mm fan, and dimensions that we're not quite sure what they are, because they are definitely not what Gigabyte says they are. So this is kind of, I think John has a rant about this. But
what makes you say this? Is just the way they measured it makes no sense?
Yeah, so the official spec is 131 millimeters wide, or some people call it tall, and then 169 millimeters long. So that sounds reasonable, but then once you start looking at it, because basically what I did is, and what some other people have done is, like, you can take known measurements of the card, like say the little card edge connector, like where the actual contacts are on the bottom, like that's specified by the PCI Express spec. So it's always going to be exactly, I think, 82 millimeters or something like that. So you can use that to kind of extrapolate the other dimensions. And if you do that, then it becomes immediately obvious that the 131 millimeter dimension does not include the shroud. It's only measuring the PCB itself.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me.
So yeah, so you have to add a little bit to the top to take into account the shroud that sticks up past the PCB. And then if you look at the length of the card, same thing. The shroud extends a little bit past the PCB, and it's apparently not included in the measurement. But not only that, the bracket, which it seems to be fairly common practice to exclude it from the width measurement. So that's debatable whether that should be included or not, but whatever. It's typical that it's not. But it's not included in the length measurement either. So like, so if like you literally only have, say, like 170 millimeters of space to fit the card, like it's not going to fit. Like the shroud takes up a little bit more than that, and then the bracket takes up a little bit more than that, as far as like the space that it actually takes up on the interior of the case. So yeah, the problem is like the one good straight on picture that's available has a little bit of perspective to it, so it's hard to say exactly what these measurements should be, but it's definitely more than the official spec. So that's rather annoying.
Yeah.
I have a couple of slight issues with this one.
Go on.
The fan, the fan on the cooler is the exact same one as that was on my old 7360 from Gigabyte that I recently had to sell, and it is a whiny, horrible cooler. The fan it's loud even at like 30%. And I've also come up with a nickname for this card. The Hunchback of Notre Dame. because that's a horrible. Like that's nowhere near ITX spec. I think I've posted my rant on that on the website, and this is taking the piss.
And what I don't get is that, as far as I can tell, that like bump in the shroud on the top of the card isn't for anything. Like I don't the heatsink, from what pictures are available of the heatsink, doesn't, like, it's all kind of just rectangular. Like it doesn't have a bit of heat pipe that kind of sticks out at a weird angle like some of the Asus cards do. So like there's, like, as far as I can tell, there's literally no reason for it to do that. Other than
But it
just
looks
does
so
look there are
cool,
heat
man.
pipes in there, but yeah, they wanted a big card like the Asus was it DirectCU 2,
yeah.
the one that sticks out with a huge amount of heat pipes.
Yeah, so
Oh no, there are heat pipes in this one, but they're the level of the lower part of the
yeah, exactly. So like
shroud. There's the extra little bump does nothing.
yeah, it's just for looks. And
E-Pain.
I mean, I don't care about it in like a full-size card, but if you're specifically marketing this as an ITX card, you think it would be prudent to, like, you know, not include like stupid bits of the design that make it take up more space than it should otherwise. So, I mean, and then they recessed the 8-pin power connector, but it's hard to tell from the picture, but it only looks like it's just like by a little bit. So I don't know what was the point of recessing it then if you're only going to do it by like 3 or 4 millimeters.
All right, and with that, I believe we have covered the news, in which case it is now time to dive in to the main event, for which we are a few days late, but that's okay.
Yeah,
That's okay. It is, of course, our monthly build contest. Now, the first thing I have to do, I think, is share the results of the last build contest. Because we didn't... Was that done last episode? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
one before.
Okay, so let's discuss the results. There were, for those who do recall the last build contest, we had to build the best discrete GPU-less build for $300 or less, not including the operating system, naturally. And we had 3 interesting approaches. James and I kind of did a similar thing where we just kind of tried to build the best computer for that price point. I invested more in the processor. James invested more in storage. John, however, had a unique approach where he spent half the money and got a substantially worse desktop out of it. But hey, who cares? It's already cheap. It's not like you'll notice the difference. And the results of the votes were a tie between James, who isn't me, and John, who also isn't me, at 40% of the vote each. So my congratulations to James and John.
Well, thank you.
You are the champions, my friends. Enjoy your victory, because it's not going to last. All right, so with that out of the way, we now move on to more important things, namely this month's SFF Build Challenge. That'll sound better with the effects. So we begged and pleaded with the community, please, for the love of God, don't give us like a $200. Just we've had our fill of cheap enclosures. John is just too good at them. We need something that gives us a bit more flexibility, a bit more room, a bit more space to grow and try things and do things.
I have to interject here. Jordan was going to suggest a $150 build.
Well, Jordan is a terrible human being and we should ignore him. But anyway,
Oh,
I don't actually mean that, maybe. In any case, we got a few suggestions, and voting was close until the very, very end. But by one vote, the winning topic by Guile Acoustic, who I'm sure I'm mispronouncing, was the most versatile digital creation rig for under $1,000. So $1,000 or less. And by versatile digital creation rig, he specifically specified that this would be for doing things like audio editing, video editing, 3D modeling, animation, or photo management and editing. So those sorts of like creative tasks that can kind of demand a lot of resources, or just, you tend to build towards whenever you think about like what kind of computer you want. Except, of course, not only do we have to build the best creation rig for $1,000, it also has to be small form factors. That's 19 liters or less. And I'm really excited. I personally had two different directions, very different directions that I thought about going for this. I ultimately went one way, and I was happy with the results. But just an explainer to people who don't remember or otherwise aren't familiar with this build contest, we have the selected item, the selected topic, $1,000 creation rig. Each of us individually built what we felt was the best possible version of this. We have not shared our builds, so none of us know what the other built. We're going to find out as we introduce them during this section. And we were required to use PC part builder to assemble these. We were required to use either Amazon or Newegg, US-based versions of those to buy parts. We do not include taxes or shipping, and we do include mail and rebates, so we give the best possible chance to really squeeze out the most hardware for that budget. We don't include the operating system because it wasn't specified in this contest. And above and beyond all of those things, we have a grace period of, this time it was only like 12 hours, but we have a grace period typically of around a week or so during the building process, where so long as at any one moment your build did meet the budget requirements, it counts. So if I say made a build on Monday, and then now because of price changes it's a little more than $1,000, it would be okay, as long as I can prove with the histogram on PC Part Picker that it was during that grace period within the budget. So that's enough explaining. We've gotten that out of the way. It is time to explore our builds, and to start us off, I'm hovering above the link right now. John, we begin with you.
Yes.
And James and I are going to open up that link and take a peek now. But why don't you go ahead and explain what you've built here?
Well, I actually kind of went a bit closer to the budget this time, as in, I think I had, 9 cents left. And you can't buy anything on Newegg for
$9.99.91. All right.
Yep. So I cut it pretty close. Now, I kind of thought with the, what's the word for it? With the build guidelines, it's kind of a mishmash of everything. So I kind of covered everything. I've got a discrete graphics card, a GTX 950, to cover CUDA for rendering. I've also got a Intel Core i7 6700 for obvious reasons. I've got 2 lots of storage, so I've got a M.2 512 Gigabyte internal SSD to attach to the motherboard, and I've also got a 960 gig 2.5 inch solid state drive, so you've not only got fast space for what you're working on right then, but moving stuff to the secondary drive when you've done with that particular project is quite quick as well. I've got a relatively mid-range board, 16 gigs of DDR4, EVGA power supply, and a Cooler Master Elite 110, which is a 15 litre case, which offers decent cooling because the front's pretty much intake. And that's about it. Oh, I also managed to fit in an aftermarket cooler, so it's not whining the whole time you're using it.
It's the ID.
And that's me.
Is it ID or ID cooling? I never know.
It's ID cooling.
ID cooling.
Yeah, IS40 low profile.
Gotcha. All right.
Which would be significantly quieter than the Intel piece of crap stock cooler.
Yes, that's probably true. All right, I've got thoughts, but I will abstain from expressing them. James, I'm now opening your build now. Why don't you go ahead and walk us through your pick?
Okay, so I went in a different route.
Ooh, interesting.
Yes, so this is very much based on kind of like my experience actually like building a relatively small workstation. Is that the problem with, because I mean the suggestion was like kind of just a do everything workstation, which is really, really tough because like it really depends on what you're doing, that where you'd want to put money into parts.
Yep.
So I ended up going a little bit lesser on the processor than John. So it's only a 6600. But this is a K though, because like some tasks are very heavily threaded, others are not so much. So it really depends on what you're doing. So it is a quad core, so you still got 4 cores. And then if your workflow is more serial rather than parallel, and you benefit from faster individual threads, then you can just overclock this puppy and get you that better single-threaded performance. So I got the Hyper 212, so nothing super fancy, but I mean, it's a lot quieter, cooler than that. I mean, for $25, I think it's a pretty good cooler. And then I did a micro-ATX build rather than a mini-ITX, because what I've run into with workstation builds is that you really, especially if you're not 100% sure what you're going to be doing, is it's really hard to plan out in advance like what all cards and expansion options you'll need. So like if you do need tons of RAM for whatever reason, you'll have 4 slots on micro ATX versus just 2 slots on ITX. And then also if you do need like say like some wacky capture card or something like that, then you'll have that option without losing your video card. So yeah, I got the AceRock Z170M Extreme 4, so not anything super, super high-end, but it's not a cheap budget board either. It's a good kind of mid-range board. Then got kind of just 2 by 8 gigs of DDR4 RAM for it. Storage is kind of like the same thing as like, since it's just kind of like do everything type of rig, it's hard to optimize storage without knowing what exactly it'll be used for. So rather than doing all solid state, I ended up doing just a 250 gig 850 Evo for just the OS and programs, and then a 3 terabyte 7200 RPM drive for bulk storage. So in case somebody's editing 4K footage, they won't just immediately run out of space. Then got a GTX 960. So because like some workstation tasks basically almost do nothing with the video card. Like say if all you do with this thing is program and compile code, then who cares what video card it has. But if you do video editing, then like Premiere Pro, After Effects do a lot of GPU acceleration, so having a relatively good video card could really speed up the workflow. And then got a Corsair RM650 watt power supply, because if it's a workstation, you want to be reliable, so no cheap, iffy power supplies here. And then got all this housed in a little bit more than 19 liter, but not by a whole lot.
A little.
Silverstone SG09. So I think it's ugly as sin, but it's not terribly big, and the cooling's decent, and it's micro ATX. So yeah, that's what I got.
All right, thank you for sharing. And I guess that just leaves it with me. So I'll let you guys go ahead and open the link to my bad boy. So I'm really liking this. I think we all have a very different take on this. All right, so I similarly to James, I really thought for a while, I was looking and trying to do a micro ATX build, but I couldn't get one together that I liked, and that also was under 19 liters. So I decided, okay, well, I'm just gonna go all the way. We'll do nice, compact, but super high performance, both in CPU and GPU to the best of my abilities build. So for the enclosure, we have a Silverstone Suga SG13BQ and Mini-ITX enclosure. It's nothing spectacular, but the nice thing about it is that it uses an ATX power supply, looks nice, and it actually supports graphics cards up to almost a foot in length. So it supports enthusiast-grade graphics card, which is important, as you'll see in a sec. For the processor, top of the line, Skylake, Intel Core i7-6700, that's 3.4 gigahertz. I do have to live with the included CPU cooler due to budget constraints, but all I could have really done by doing an aftermarket cooler given the fact that it has to be somewhat low profile due to the enclosure and the position of the power supply and whatnot. All I really could have done was improve the noise. Like, I'm not going to improve the cooling performance substantially, so I was okay with that. The motherboard is a Gigabyte GA Z170N. So I went with this motherboard because the price for it gets really good. It has modern I/O, including USB Type-C. It's got Wi-Fi. It even has, although I'm not using it, a M.2 PCIe 3.0 X4 connector. So if you eventually wanted to upgrade and put in a super fast M.2 SSD, you'd have that option. However, for my storage, because I wanted to have an adequate amount of storage, but also have it all be fast, I went with a SATA 3 SSD, specifically the Corsair Force LE, which for only $200, you get a terabyte of storage, and the reviews I've read for this drive were actually generally pretty positive. So I thought that was the best sort of balanced purchase for the money. You get ample storage, but it's all nice and quick. For memory, one stick of Crucial Ballistics Sport LT. So you can upgrade to 32 by putting in another 16 gig stick if you really need it. But I think for most even enthusiast or workstation use cases, you really don't need more than 16 gigs. For graphics, I went, of course, with the recently released Radeon RX 480. It's 8 gigs of GDDR5 memory. The price performance ratio of this card is simply unrivaled. I think that is ample performance for any video editing or other things you might be doing while not being so overzealous that you're just wasting money investing it in graphics you're not using at this expense of the CPU. And then the power supply, the most boring power supply I could find that still fit within my budget, EVGA 80 plus certified, 430 watt. Nothing spectacular, but it won't blow up in your face. And yeah, that's my build. So we have seen what all of us have on offer. We have spoken as highly as we can and explained our rationale behind our choices. But now is the time. Oh, and by the way, my build is it's $1,491, but you have to subtract the $498 in shipping. So that means it's $999.93. So John and I, needless to say, really pushed it. But okay.
There was a lot of component shuffling to get it to fit.
Oh, yes. There was lots of downgrading certain components, power supply memory, to get it within. In any case, we've explained our thinking. We have shared our builds. But now that we've done that, we each get a turn to eviscerate our opponents. We go in the same order we began with. So, John, tear us down.
Okay, I've actually got some points this time instead of the last time. James's rig. Workstation, you don't really want to overclock. You just imagine you've got this amazing video project. You've worked on it for weeks and weeks and weeks. It's time to encode it. Halfway through, your system crashes because the overclock's just that little bit too high and corrupts the file. You be a little bit pissed off. 23 litre case. No. Can we disqualify this one just like the last time we did no case? Like, seriously, what's with you in the cases? We have a rule. Follow it. And you've only gone for the i5, not the i7. So that's interesting. Joshua, unfortunately, it's just a case of like how much NVIDIA spends money with developers. CUDA is a lot higher. CUDA has much more support in rendering and encoding and whatnot applications than the OpenGL that AMD supports. Unfortunately, it's just a fact. You've only gone for a single drive of a terabyte, kind of limiting in storage there, and single channel memory. Once again, a little bit of performance cut there, and you're also risking burning your board because you've got an RX 480 and they don't pull 75 watts from the slot. They pull more than that and may end up burning traces.
Wait, what? Okay.
Have you not heard of that? The RX 480 pulls more than 75 watts from the slot.
Oh, but it pulls more than 150 total, but barely. I mean, anyway.
It pulls a lot more it pulls an extra 20 watts from the slot that it should.
Well, that's too bad. James. Go for it.
Okay, so yeah, obviously I'm the odd one out here with the micro-ATX, and in my defense, I think a slavish adherence to the rules is not healthy. Because
Right.
yeah, because unfortunately there isn't a good sub 19-liter micro-ATX
This is
case
true.
yet.
We're working
So
on it.
Maybe somebody will do something about that eventually. But the thing is like, if he had said like, I want a workstation for video editing or a workstation for programming, then I would have been fine with Mini-ITX. But like a workstation that can do everything, like you don't know what the feature's going to hold, like what kind of equipment you're going to need, or if you're going to need upgrades. So like the problem was the Mini-ITX is like I said, like you start getting in, you buy some new camera, it's got some wacky capture card you need to use with it for like say streaming. Well, you're out of luck if you got Mini-ITX if you want to keep that video card. So yeah, micro-ATX, man, workstation, it's the way to go. So that way you have expandability, just if you need to add something, cards or PCI Express storage, like adding card, whatever, you have the option with micro-ATX. Not so much with Mini-ITX. And then like with John's rig, I mean even more so than just Mini-ITX alone, you got the Elite 110, which is actually pretty large for considering like it's a pretty short case. So if you do want to put in a long video card, well, you can't. It's just there ain't room for it. So that's problematic. And then with Joshua's rig, 480. I mean, I really thought about the 480 because like the price performance is good, and OpenGL support's a lot better than it used to be, but it's a workstation, so you don't really want your video card melting your motherboard. That would be bad for a workstation. So, and the other thing is like both of you, I mean, they're definitely, I will say, much better power supplies than what Jay's had in that one budget build. So I will say
That's a high
there's
bar.
a pretty good chance that they won't immediately blow up the first time you turn it on. But I mean, they're still budget power supplies. They're nothing fancy. So on a gaming computer, if it crashes, it sucks, but whatever. But on a workstation, you really want something better. That's why I went with all kind of, not just like the cheapest board that would fit or the cheapest power supply that would work. I went with quality board, quality power supply. Yeah, I guess it's debatable whether you should be overclocking on a workstation, but it kind of depends on what you're doing. Like if you're compiling code and it's mostly single threaded, then it may be worth the risk. So yeah, I mean that's just I would say all general purpose workstation, just micro-ATX, man. It's the way to go.
All right, cool. And that leaves me. I will start with John. John, I'm sorry, I've got problems here. First problem is that I don't understand what the heck you were thinking with the storage arrangement you had, because you say, oh, we've got this nice, really speedy M.2 SSD, and then you've got like a SATA SSD. But I looked up the specifications of that speedy M.2 Sandisk X400 SSD. Do you know what the sequential read is? 540. That's the same as SATA 3. What the heck is the point of this? It makes no sense. Now it's just inconvenient because you got two drives and it's got to manage storage between them, and the performance isn't any different. If you're going to do M.2, which I considered doing, you got to do M.2 all the way and actually purchase an M.2 SSD that'll use the performance and additional bandwidth provided by M.2. Beyond that, you also went with two sticks, 8 gigs each of memory, which is great until you realize you cannot upgrade that at all. I know you're complaining earlier that, oh, I'm only using a single channel of memory. Well, guess what? In practice, that doesn't make a damn bit of difference. Meanwhile, you have to replace all of your memory if you want to upgrade to 32 down the line. And your case is ugly. All right, that's the extent of my criticisms. Moving on to James. James, you have a workstation but you had to skimp on the CPU for the workstation, and you compensate for that by overclocking a ostensibly supposed to be super stable build by your own admission. Furthermore, you are too big. I mean, 19 liters is the rule, and this is 23 liters, and 4 liters more than 19 liters is a lot more than 19, so I don't know what's going on there. Not only that, but you only have, I mean, you have 3 terabytes of storage with like a Toshiba hard drive, but you only have like 250 gigs of SSD storage, and now it's 2 drives. You have to manage that. It's complicated. And then, by the way, for both of y'all's builds, you went with either, in the case of John, a GTX 950 or GTX 960 in James's case, which is fine. I mean, I guess they do the job, but when you compare it with my brand spanking new, far more powerful on a T-flops basis card, they don't look so hot anymore. So to me, this seems pretty straightforward. I have the best CPU, I have the best GPU, I have the most sensible storage arrangement, I have a very nice board that supports modern standards for I/O, and I have memory that's upgradable. And the power supply is fine. It's just fine. Don't worry about. Don't even click the. Don't look at the Johnny Guru review. It's fine. I guarantee you, it's fine.
I get the feeling we've been here before.
I've been noticing that we're all very consistent in where we make compromises. So I'd just like to point out to the listeners that 2 out of 3 times James has not followed the rules when it came to enclosures. Oh,
It's interesting.
I know, it's an interesting trend, isn't it?
Yeah.
He should I would never trust him to design an enclosure. It's just, who knows what the heck would happen.
Yeah, the case might actually be 20-something liters. We just don't know.
That's right. It's, yeah. We used very creative measurements to get to 18. In any case, that concludes our build challenge. And we will have a forum thread up about the same time we post this podcast online, where the community can look at our critiques, look at our builds, and vote on their favorite, and we will see who is the winner. Yeah, I'm actually really curious what's going to happen here. I mean, we really did all approach it in different ways, and we were very, we chose very different but explicit compromises. That said, I mean, overall, like, these are all awesome builds for a grand. I mean, you couldn't really have gone wrong in any of these directions. I think we all had good points. And James, to your point, I really did try to do it in micro-ATX because I did feel like that was the more sensible thing to do.
I think the problem is like, there are cases that would qualify, but they're
so
Newegg or
restrictive.
Amazon.
Oh, that
like
too,
some
yeah.
of the like the John's bows and stuff, they're not really available on like Newegg and Amazon, so I couldn't really use any of them.
Yeah,
like the designs of some of those are a bit questionable.
I'm wondering if we need to amend the rules to make it a little easier for micro-ATX builds to even be possible, because yeah, I mean, or either that or like allow us to use other vendors or something. We'll have a conversation, because I agree. Like, I wanted to do micro-ATX. In theory, I could have been able to do micro-ATX, but it's really hard to do sensibly given the constraints of the contest. So we'll see. But that concludes our build segment of the show, and now for the third half of the show.
Actually, before we do that, so did you not know about the 480s and the power supply or the power from the slot thing?
Well, so I knew that the overall power draw was bigger than 150 watt. I didn't realize that the gap was explained through the PCI. Like, I just assumed it was proportionately
so what it
distributed.
is like, so the PCI Express spec says that
75
the
watts.
requirement is 75.
66 on the 12-watt rail.
Oh, is it 12 volt? Okay, so, but what it is like, I believe it's an optional part of the spec that they can, the boards can handle more than that, but that's not required. That's optional whether the motherboard makers want to implement to allow higher power draw. But the other problem is that I think PC Perspective talked to a couple motherboard manufacturers, and they said that The problem with the 480 is that it draws like 80 to 90 watts on the
Yikes.
PCIe slot. And the problem is like the motherboard makers, I think, told PC Perspective that they could tolerate spikes at that kind of load,
But not
but they
sustained.
can't, not sustained. And that it's almost certain that eventually it would cause damage. Though I think the real question is like what exactly symptoms would you encounter and like how long would it take? Like whether it's just like I mean it could just be it's just like very, very slightly unstable after like say 5 years, or it could be like your board's dead after a month. So at this point I don't think we have any kind of clear picture on how much of a problem it really is. But I mean, one way or the other, AMD is going to have to fix it. Because I mean, of course, like you can't have your video card killing boards. I mean, that's just you just can't do that. But the other thing is that they're legally required to fix it because the video cards are sold as being PCI Express compliant,
Right.
but they're not. And in order for the PCIe SIG group to maintain their trademark, they have to enforce their trademark. And so if it's not compliant, then AMD cannot sell it as a compliant card. And I think I was reading that they have 3 months to fix it. Either they pull it off the shelves or they fix it somehow, whether that's a BIOS update or driver throttling it or something. So yeah, it's going to have to be fixed. So I'll be curious to see exactly how this all goes down.
I have a question though. Is it going over this wattage limit in gaming, or is it only in high intensity benchmarking like Furmark?
That actually I don't know.
Because if it's in benchmarking, I can understand it going out of spec. Because who sits there all day, every day benchmarking?
Yeah, I mean,
But if it's in like, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, in practical terms, yeah, that's true. But I mean, it's still a problem, even if it's only in benchmarks.
Yeah.
But yeah, that I don't know. I don't remember reading whether it's in games or not. Yeah.
So it could be, every game, like, as soon as you hit max frames and stuff like that, it's pulling that wattage. But I'd be, like, maybe 90% of the time in gaming, it's going nowhere near there, and we're not going to see motherboard failures.
Yeah, I wonder. Yeah, I'll have to look. Yeah, because I wasn't aware of that specificity that it was power over the connector. I thought it was just power consumption overall.
I think it's going over spec on both.
Yeah. I'll have to look into it. But yeah.
Which, I mean, if it was overdrawing the 6-pin, that's actually not a big deal at all because
they're well overrated.
Well, the 6-pin connector is actually fully capable of pulling of handling more than 75 watts. Really, because I mean, if you notice, most power supplies, the extra 2 pins on the 8-pin PCI Express are usually just daisy chained off the 6-pin.
Yep.
Like a lot of times they don't actually have separate wires running back to the power supply. And that's because the 6-pin is more than capable of doing the full 150 watts. The extra 2 pins just tells the video card that it's an 8-pin connector. That's literally all it does. And
It's both ground.
it was originally intended for like in the early days when like your power supply very well may not have been able to handle 150 watts off of the for the video cards, and so like having the 6-pin versus 8-pin was more to differentiate which power supplies were actually capable of delivering that kind of power. But with modern power supplies, especially since they're usually single rail for the 12 volt, so it's all running through the same rail anyway. And so the wires themselves are more than capable of running the 150 watts. So on modern power supplies, I don't get concerned at all if it's drawing a little bit more than the 75 watts on the 6-pin, because in reality, it's perfectly fine. It's just in this instance with the PCI Express slot, that's the problem.
Well, we shall keep tabs to be sure. I can't believe this is something. I mean, AMD can't have not known about this.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, because I think I think there was an AMA on Reddit interviewing I forget his name, the guy who's the head of the Radeon technical group now, and I think he said like they had done, of course, I mean they had done all sorts of testing in the lead up to manufacturing. They said they hadn't encountered this issue, which I'm really suspicious of, though, because I mean, if it was just like one reviewer and one limited benchmark ran into that, I could see them not encountering it in testing. But I think PC Pers run into it. I think Hard OCPs run into it. Tech Powers run into it. I think there was like a Portuguese or Brazilian reviewer that has a video on YouTube that's got a lot of hits, ran into it. So, I mean, you got multiple people encountering it across, I think, multiple software loads, so like different benchmarks in different games. So it seems fairly widespread, so I can't imagine how they would have missed this during testing. I mean, I don't know. It's really interesting how this is all happened.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will follow it, and I'll be interested to see how they resolve it, because you'd think that like with a BIOS update or something, they'd have to throttle performance.
Yeah, that's what kind of one questions. I don't know whether they could maybe do a BIOS update to kind of force it to draw more power from the 6-pin connector versus the slot, or if that's a hardware limitation. Because if they can't make it draw more power from one source to the other, the only solution for the existing
reduce
cards
power
is
drawing
to throttle
overall.
it. Yeah, they'd have to throttle performance to keep the power consumption below the limit, which would really suck.
You don't say.
Yeah, because I don't know about you, but I mean, they really hyped the card up. I mean, it is a good card. It is good price per performance, but I don't know, performance per watt's actually not that impressive. I don't know about you, but I wasn't super excited about the performance per watt.
Oh, no.
480.
No,
Yeah.
but like and I said this when we were initially discussing it, I think that was much the point. I think that's how they got to the $200 price point for the performance, is that they're able to take a really, really small die, right? And because it's 14 nanometer, and then they took a very, very small piece of the wafer, and then they just push that as hard as they possibly can, and just pump like as much power as they can conceivably allow and maximize the performance out of it. And they're like, okay, yeah, the efficiency is going to be terrible, right? Because we're practically just super overclocking these and then selling them as the thing. But the benefit of that is that we can squeeze way more performance out of the money we spend per graphics card, because we're using these tiny dies. So yeah, that didn't surprise me, and I think that's a fine compromise to make, so long as you're really realizing a good price to performance ratio, which I think for the most part they have. But a consequence of that may have just been that, like, oh, well, in the design process or when they were building this out, they weren't really paying attention, or felt that this was a compromise no one would notice or whatever, and now it's an issue.
Yeah, now it's going to cost them. So,
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I hope not. I hope this has a simple fix. I hope it's just not that big a deal, but it's concerning. Specifications exist for a reason.
I mean, yeah.
Yes, like rules and design and build challenges.
Ooh.
Yeah, but PCIe specs are legally enforced, so...
I'm calling my attorney
Can
as
we
we
fire
speak.
this guy?
But yeah, one thing I've seen a lot of people suggesting, though, with the 480 is, like, just buy the aftermarket ones that will have 8-pin connectors. So I'm wondering if maybe, like, they just redesigned the reference ones, and then, like, because, I mean, honestly, I mean, kind of, I think we had discussed this last time, the last podcast, is that the reference cooler is really not that special. Like,
No, it's
it's
not.
really, really not. Like, I think they hyped it up during the live stream when they showed it.
Ooh,
off.
it's a nice high-end one, just like
Yeah,
the
it's
Fury.
it's a
Like,
premium
no, it's
cooler
not.
design like the Fury, and no, it's a plastic shroud with it. It's not even, doesn't have a heat pipes or a vapor chamber. It's literally an aluminum block with a copper slug. That's the heat sink. So, I mean, it's nothing special. So I'm wondering if maybe, I mean, because I imagine a lot of people aren't real keen on buying the reference design, and they're waiting for the aftermarket ones, and the only reason they're buying it is because all that's available, kind of like the Founders Edition nonsense. So I'm wondering if in the long run it won't be a big deal, because everybody will buy the aftermarket ones, which will have beefier power delivery, and then like they just redesign the reference design, and then everybody forgets about it. So I don't know. It'd be interesting.
Yeah, we'll see. Anyway, let's go ahead and wrap up this show. And of course, as always, we wrap up with the freaking fantastic, functional, fully flavorful favorite form Fred of the fortnight, which for this episode is Project Shh. And this is actually created by one of our own, by one of the J's, namely John. So I'm gonna stop talking about it and just have John talk about it.
Well, I thought it'd be time for some selfish self-promotion. Something I've been struggling with since we started doing podcasts is just the noise in the background from my system, and it's just constant fan noise. Kind of gets really annoying. So a couple of months ago, I did a test on passive cooling. It may have killed a test board, but it's besides the point. And the idea of passive or mostly passive system with decent performance kind of intrigued me, so I'm now working towards it. So I've got a new board, the Gigabyte FM2A88XN Wi-Fi. I don't know why they've got so many letters and numbers on that. The Johnsbow case, which I've around before, won't go into that. Some 2.5-inch hard drives. Yes, I know hard drives, but deal with it. A GTX 750 Ti low profile. A Xignatec GPU cooler, which I've modified to fit the case. 240 gig SSD, which is, to be honest, the only thing I'm running at the moment. So my whole life it's on a 240 gig solid state drive. Gonna chuck a quad core in it. Figure out what I'm going to do about power supply and CPU cooler. I'm thinking, well, maybe I'll leave it up to you guys to suggest. I'm looking at either a SFX power supply with the Silverstone adapter plate, or going DC to DC, but might end up having, I don't really like the idea of having the brick hanging out the back of the case, with the Johnsbow not exactly being the smallest of ITX cases.
Couldn't you just keep the brick inside the computer? There's enough room for
I could,
it, right?
but
yeah. I mean, it's kind of kludgy, but
it's kind of clunky. Yeah, yeah. Because there's kind of room for that kind of thing down the front bottom of the case next to the 2.5-inch hard drives.
And then for
I don't think that's been done before, has it?
what, putting the brick inside the enclosure?
Yeah.
Oh, so sorry. It must have been at least once.
I mean, I think most people would just use a power supply at that point. So
Yeah. But I suppose it offers that flexibility of the small, like a Pico PSU, and the brick being, you can put
That's
it
right. With the brick, you can
choose.
choose between the inconvenience of an unsecured internal power supply or the inconvenience of an external unsecured power supply that you have to find a place to put. That's right. It's really flexible.
Or use the Straycom AC to DC internal one.
Yes, that's true. So,
Which I believe has mounting.
And you were
hardware.
asking about options for CPU coolers as well?
Yeah, well, it depends on what power supply I end up going for.
Right, so that's what I was gonna...
I prefer to do like a tower cooler in there with a DC to DC power supply, but if I end up going SFX, I've got 90 millimeters of CPU cooler I can fit before it hits the power supply.
Well, it's kind of tough on that board because the CPU socket's so close to the PCIe slot.
Yeah, the Noctua, it's the C14S that I'm recently reviewed, doesn't fit.
It doesn't fit with the PCIe card installed.
Yeah, blocks the
I kind of
blocks the card. A lot of the other top-down coolers, because
what
it's
about
pretty
the
poor layout on
L12?
Gigabytes.
Does it fit?
I haven't tried it yet. Unfortunately,
Well,
the L12's undergoing long-term testing in my micro-ATX system.
Do you have one of the L9 X65s?
Yes, that fits nicely.
Yeah, that's a good cooler.
Seems a little... yeah, I'm trying to go as big a cooler as possible, though, for quiet.
Yeah, it's a really good cooler for the size, but yeah, it's not huge. Yeah.
And, 90 mil fan. I mean, the ideal thing, because if I go for a DC to DC, I can fit like a Scythe Ninja 2. Is it Ninja 2? Ninja 4 in there, which is going to be interesting. Yeah.
I mean, worst case, do you have at your home, do you have like aluminum foil?
I do.
Do you have like wood glue?
No, but I can source some. I don't know what
So
you're getting at here.
you just get some foil and wood glue and ball it up and just attach it to your CPU, and there you go.
Okay.
The less you think about it,
So-
the better it performs.
So we're gonna have to get Joshua checked.
What, you need a custom height CPU cooler? It's great. They're all basically just aluminum, you know.
with copper heat pipes. I worry about you guys sometimes.
Oh man. Anyway, it's an interesting build. I'm
happy for people to suggest ideas in the thread as to power supply, cooler, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I would just kind of go the traditional route personally, but that's just me. I bet you.
I'm hoping to do a side.
I bet you there'll
Sorry?
be a contingent of folks that'll suggest going with the brick, but we'll see.
Yeah. I can also fit an ATX power supply, but
Yeah.
why?
Well, I mean, the biggest issue with that is you get really limited on CPU heatsink at that
Yeah,
point.
no kidding.
Yeah.
And noisy fan, and then you've got the CPU cooler fan fighting the power supply fan.
Well, but that would probably be. I mean, certainly in terms
Power
of
supply's not
noise.
reversible.
Well, no, but I mean in terms of noise, it would be preferable compared to at least an SFX unit. I would expect. Because
It depends
would
on
be
the
much
SFX.
larger.
That's true.
Yeah. I mean, if it's like
Unless I go SFXL.
the Corsair SF450 or 600, I mean, at the loads this thing's going to see, it should stay off most of the time.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's very
I'm
true.
looking
Good
at
point.
I'm looking at a total of about 130, 140 watts. So
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, you might. That may be the way to go
I've got
because then it'll be
so many
entirely
options.
passive. All right. Well, as we
That's all I have to say.
as we let you ponder and as people continue to post to the forum thread, we have arrived at the end of this episode of Low Volume. My name is Josh Ramirez, aka PlayfulPhoenix. Today I was joined by John Morrison, aka Confusis, and James Schell, aka Aibohphobia. I've got lots of stuff going on for the next few weeks. How about you guys? What's on your docket, John?
Work, more work. Decide on a power supply. And lots of content. We've got a couple news, no, not new. We've got a couple of CPU coolers coming in for review in the near future. Going to reach out to some other contacts and see if see we can get some more stuff to look at. And yeah, more stuff for you guys to read and enjoy.
Looking forward to it. And how about you, James?
Yeah, busy at work. I think Tuesday I get to go on a service call and try to work on a machine that's running MS-DOS, so that'll be fun. Yeah. He brought in the hard drive yesterday to check it, and it's a 512 megabyte IDE hard drive.
It still works?
Yeah, it still works.
That's
Yep.
incredible.
I was able to image it. The operating system takes up 20 megabytes. So yeah, that'll be fun to troubleshoot, because the problem is that the CMOS battery died because it's only 20 years old.
Oh my god.
It's not a bad run.
Yeah, so it reset the BIOS and now it won't boot. So I have to go there and figure out what settings it needs to boot. So that'll be fun.
That's
That's
incredible.
It's an old BIOS too, so you're manually entering hard drive information.
Yep. So I think he
It
had
has
already.
this many cylinders.
Yep. I think he already tried to do the cylinders and the sectors and stuff, so I'm gonna have to figure out why it's still not working. So that'll be fun. But it's controlling a laser cutter, so at least I'll be able to look at the laser cutter, so that'll be cool. But yeah, I get to work on a 20-year-old computer, so that'll be fun.
Well, good luck with that, and I look forward to hearing how that goes. But to our listeners,
Overclock it while you're there.
that's right, over yeah. It'll laser cut 20% faster.
Yeah. It's
That's
productivity.
That's how that works. But in any case, thank you so much, listeners, for tuning in, and we will return back in just 2 short weeks. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.